112 aerial victories, but their greatest triumph was proving
March
they
24th,
belonged.
1945. 30,000 feet above burning Berlin. Lieutenant Roscoe Brown locks eyes with the future. A Messerschmitt Me-262 jet, screaming through the clouds at 540 miles per hour. His P-51 Mustang, a propeller-driven relic by comparison, maxes out at 440. Every tactical manual says this is suicide. Every Luftwaffe briefing warns pilots to avoid the red-tailed fighters, but Brown doesn't flinch. He banks hard, finger tightening on the trigger. Today, 3 black pilots will rewrite the rules of aerial warfare, and nobody back home will believe it. March 24th, 1945, 05 and 12 hours, Ramatelli Airfield, Italy. Roscoe Brown couldn't sleep, again. He sat on the edge of his cot flight suit, half-zipped, staring at the mission brief in his hands. The paper trembled. Not from fear, he'd stopped being afraid 6 months ago. The trembling came from something else. Exhaustion. Adrenaline. The knowledge that today's target sat 832 miles deep into Germany. Berlin. The door banged open. Charles Brantley walked in, already dressed, helmet tucked under one arm. "You look like hell, Ross." "Didn't sleep." Nobody slept. Brantley dropped onto the adjacent cot. "Lane's been in the latrine for 20 minutes. I think he's praying." "Smart man." Brantley lit a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his face. "You read the addendum, the one they slipped under our doors at 0400? Brown nodded. He'd read it 3 times. 4 words that changed everything. Me-262 jets confirmed active. "Yeah, I read it." "We're screwed, you know that." Brantley's voice carried no panic, just statement of fact. "Those things do 540 miles per hour. We max out at 440 on a good day with a tailwind." "I know. Can't outrun them. Can't outclimb them. Their 30mm cannons will cut a Mustang in half with one burst." "I know, Charles. So what's the play?" Brown stood, zipping his flight suit to his throat. Outside engines were already coughing to life. Ground crews shouting. The base waking to war. "Same as always. We stay with the bombers." Brantley laughed, sharp, humorless. "They're gonna call us cowards again. White fighter groups will say we hid behind the B-17s while they were out being heroes. Let them talk. Easy for you to say. You got a college degree. When this war's over, you'll be fine." Brantley took a long drag, smoke curling toward the ceiling. "Me, I'm going back to Philadelphia. Back to shipping crates and being called boy by men half as smart as I am." Brown turned, meeting his friend's eyes. "Then make today count." A moment passed between them, understanding without words. They'd flown 47 missions together, 47 times into German guns and flak and fighters. 47 times they'd come home when statistics said they shouldn't have. Today might be number 48, or it might be the end. Earl Lane appeared in the doorway, face drawn but composed. "You two ready? Briefings in 5. "Ready as we'll ever be," Brantley said, crushing his cigarette under his boot. 532 hours. Briefing room. 64 pilots crammed into a space meant for 40. The air thick with coffee, cigarette smoke, and tension you could taste. A map of Europe dominated the front wall. Red lines traced their route. Over the Alps, across Austria, deep into the heart of Germany. Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. stood before the map, pointer in hand. West Point graduate, first black officer to solo in an Army aircraft, the man who'd built the 332nd from nothing. "Gentlemen," his voice cut through the murmur, "today we escort the 5th Bombardment Wing to Berlin. Target Daimler-Benz Tank Works. Secondary targets rail yards and industrial facilities." He tapped the map. Distance 832 miles one way. Flight time approximately 3 hours each direction. 43 B-17s under our protection. Expected flak. He paused. Heavy. Expected fighter activity extreme. Someone coughed. The room got quieter. Davis continued. "Intelligence confirms Me-262 jet fighters operational in the Berlin defense sector. For those who haven't been paying attention, the 262 is powered by twin turbojet engines. Maximum speed, 540 miles per hour. Armament, 4 30mm cannons. He let that sink in. Our P-51s max out at 440 miles per hour in level flight. The jets can outrun us, outclimb us, and outgun us. Davis set down the pointer. Any questions so far? No one spoke. What question could possibly help? Good. Because here's what you need to know. Jets are fast, but they're not invincible. They have to slow down to attack. Their engines are fragile, takes 10 to 25 hours before they burn out. And their pilots... Davis smiled, cold and sharp. Their pilots are scared of you. Murmurs rippled through the room. Luftwaffe briefings specifically warn their pilots avoid the Red-Tailed Mustangs. They've learned what happens when they tangle with the 332nd. We don't break formation. We don't abandon our charges. We kill them while protecting our bombers. Davis's eyes swept the room. Today's rule is the same as every day: stay with the bombers. No matter what, no matter who. If a jet appears, if 100 jets appear, your job is to keep them away from those B-17s. Understood? Yes, sir. 64 voices in unison. One more thing. Davis's voice softened just slightly. 4 years ago, they said we couldn't fly. Said we didn't have the intelligence, the courage, the skill. We've proven them wrong 47 times. Today's number 48. Show them, show everyone what the Tuskegee Airmen are made of. He stepped back. Dismissed. Wheels up in 15 minutes. Say, 547 hours. Flight line. Brown approached his aircraft tail number 51. Someone had painted Josephine under the canopy his mother's name. He ran his hand along the fuselage, cold aluminum, biting through his glove. She's ready, Lieutenant. Sergeant Marcus Webb stood beside the wing clipboard in grease-stained hands. Kid from Georgia, couldn't be more than 19. Guns. All 6 50 cals test fired this morning. Loaded 1.880 rounds mixed ball and tracer. Engine. Packard Merlin purring like a kitten, sir. Oil pressure perfect. Coolant flushed yesterday. She'll get you there and back. Brown nodded. Good work, Sergeant. Webb hesitated. Sir, is it true about the jets? It's true. And you're still going up? Brown met the kid's eyes. Saw the fear there. The same fear every ground crew felt watching their pilots climb into machines that might not come back. We don't get to choose our fights, Sergeant. We just fight them. He climbed onto the wing. The cockpit smelled like oil leather and yesterday's sweat. He settled into the seat, connected his oxygen mask, strapped in. 4-point harness cinched tight. Parachute cushion pressing against his back. Through the canopy he caught Earl Lane's eye, 3 aircraft down. Lane raised one hand, steady, controlled. That was Lane. Always calm. Brantley off Brown's left wing was gesturing wildly at his crew chief, probably complaining about something. Brantley complained about everything. It kept him loose. Brown's hands moved through the pre-flight checklist automatically. Battery on, fuel selector, mixture rich, throttle cracked, magnetos both. His fingers knew the sequence better than his mind did. The radio crackled. All aircraft, this is home plate. Stand by for engine start. Brown took a breath, held it, let it out slow. Then he pressed the starter. The Packard Merlin engine coughed once, twice, caught. A 12-cylinder howl that vibrated through the airframe, through his seat, through his chest. 1,200 horsepower turning a 4-bladed propeller. All down the flight line, engines roared to life. 64 Mustangs waking up. 64 Red-Tails catching the dawn light. 551 hours. Takeoff. Red flight, you are cleared for takeoff. Winds light and variable. Good hunting. Brown released the brakes. The Mustang lurched forward, tail skid scraping tarmac. 20 miles per hour. 40. 60. The tail lifted, nose dropping to horizon level. 90 miles per hour. 100. At 1 and 10, he pulled back on the stick. The wheels left the ground. For 3 seconds, exactly 3, Roscoe Brown felt pure joy. The moment gravity surrendered. The moment the earth fell away and the sky opened infinite. This was why men flew, not for war, not for glory, For this, the impossible lightness of defying nature itself. Then, reality crashed back. He retracted the landing gear wheels thumping into their wells, trimmed the elevator, pulled power back to climb setting. Lane slid into position off his right wing exactly where he should be. Brantley off his left. Red flight sound off. Red 2 good. Red 3 good. Red 4 check. Brown keyed his mic. Home plate red flight airborne and forming up. Copy red flight, climb to Angels 25. Your bombers are at Rally Point Delta waiting for escort. 25,000 feet. 5 miles straight up. High enough that the cold would seep through every seal. High enough that one hit meant a long fall to contemplate mistakes. They climbed in silence. Italy dropped away, coastline mountains, the sharp blue knife edge of the Adriatic. Brown's eyes never stopped moving. Left, right, check 6, check altitude, check formation. The discipline burned into him at Tuskegee, where 1 second of inattention meant failure, meant washing out, meant proving every racist bastard right. Captain Muller's voice echoed in his memory. Brown, you keep scanning like that, your neck's gonna fall off. Then I'll die with my head on a swivel, sir. Damn right you will. Muller had died over France in '44. They never found his body. 623 hours, over the Adriatic. The B-17s appeared first as sunlight glinting on metal, then as shapes, then as the massive 4-engine fortresses. They were each one carrying 10 men and 6 tons of bombs. Brown had escorted B-17s 47 times. Never got used to how vulnerable they looked. Flying coffins, some pilots called them. Big, slow aluminum wrapped around flesh. But the men inside were Americans. That was enough. Red flight, take escort position. Spread formation. The Mustangs wove a protective dome around the bomber stream. From a distance, it looked almost graceful. A school of fish, each responding to invisible signals. Lane's voice. Roz, you see that cloud bank at 10 o'clock? Brown looked. Dark clouds building along the horizon, the kind that hid enemy fighters until they were on top of you. I see it. We're flying straight into it. I know. Just making sure you know. Brantley cut in. Earl, you worry too much. What's the worst that could happen? We all die. Besides that. Despite everything, Brown smiled. Their ritual, Brantley's bravado, Lane's caution, his own silence. They'd done this over Austria, Hungary, Romania. Today was just another day. Except for the jets. 712 hours. Austrian airspace. Nothing. Clear skies. Brown's oxygen mask hissed with each breath, the rubber seal cold against his face. At 25,000 feet, the temperature outside was 40 below zero. Inside the cockpit, maybe 20 above. His fingers were already going numb despite the gloves. He flexed them on the stick. Had to keep the blood moving. The Alps passed beneath white peaks, blue shadows. Brown didn't look down. The beauty didn't matter. Only the mission mattered. His eyes kept scanning. Left quadrant. Right quadrant. Check 6. The rhythm hypnotic and essential. That's where they'd come from. Always from the sun or from 6 o'clock. Basic tactics. Ancient as aerial combat itself. 08:43 hours. German airspace. The radio exploded. Bandits 10 o'clock high count 20 plus. Brown's pulse kicked, not panic, just recognition. His body preparing. I see them, Lane called. W-190s and 109s, mixed formation. Brown's eyes locked on the dots. They were splitting into 2 groups, classic pincer. One group would feint draw off escorts. The other would hit the bombers from below. Red flight maintain position. Nobody breaks. Roz, they're right there, Brantley started. Nobody breaks. The first group dove toward them, 8 fighters coming fast and high. Every instinct screamed, engage, turn, climb, fight. Brown held formation. The German pilots must have been confused. Allied fighters always scattered, always chased glory. But the Red-Tails stayed locked, a wall of disciplined fire. The faint group pulled up at the last second, unwilling to fly into concentrated defensive fire. The second group attacked from below. Engage, engage. Brown rolled, inverted, and pulled. The Mustang's nose came down. Blood rushed to his head. His vision narrowed to a gray tunnel. 5 Gs, maybe 6. He grunted, tightening his abs, forcing blood back to his brain. A FW-190 filled his gun sight, blocky radial engine, wide wings, black crosses. Guns, guns, guns. 650 caliber machine guns hammered. The recoil shuddered through the airframe. Tracers arced every 5th round, burning bright. The 190 tried to jink left. Brown led it. Anticipating. Calculating deflection without thinking. Strikes. Pieces of cowling tore away. Smoke poured from the engine. The 190 rolled hard, right trailing fire falling. No time to watch. Brown pulled up hard, searching for the next threat. His head swiveled. "Where's the next one? Where's Red 3? You got one on your 6. Lane's voice tight with strain. "I see him, can't shake him." Brown's head snapped around. There, Lane's Mustang, with a BF-109 locked on his tail, both aircraft corkscrewing down through the formation in a death spiral. Brown kicked rudder hard, rolled, pulled. The world spun. His aircraft groaned under the G-force's metal creaking, but he got positioned high and behind the 109. The German pilot never saw him. Brown fired. 2-second burst. Solid hits. The 109's canopy shattered into crystal fragments. The aircraft snapped into a flat spin, pilot slumped forward or dead. "You're clear, 3. "Thanks, Led." Lane's breathing was ragged, gasping into the oxygen mask. That was close. "Stay sharp. We're not done." The German attack broke off. Too much resistance. Too many red tails exactly where they needed to be. The survivors scattered back into Germany. Brantley whooped over the radio. "Did you see that I got 2, maybe 3? "Shut it, Brantley," someone called. "You got 1.5. "That's still..." "Radio discipline," Brown snapped. "We're still 400 miles from target. Save it." But he understood. The adrenaline. The impossible relief of still breathing. You either laughed or screamed. No middle ground. 19 hours. Approaching Berlin. The city appeared on the horizon like an open wound. Smoke, rubble. From 5 miles up, it looked abstract, a painting of destruction. Flat corridor ahead, heavy concentration. Black puffs materialized around the formation, 88 mm shells detonating, each one throwing shrapnel in a 200-foot radius. The sound reached them seconds later. Muffled crumps felt more than heard. A B-17 to Brown's left took a direct hit. The tail section separated, just separated. The bomber pitched forward, spinning, already dead. Pieces tumbling through space. Brown counted parachutes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 6 men didn't get out. "Steady," he called, fighting to keep his voice level, almost to the drop point. The bombers began their run. Bay doors yawned open. Bombs fell long tumbling arcs, black against gray smoke. Secondary explosions bloomed below. Orange, red, white. The Daimler-Benz works cooking off. Ammunition, fuel, everything combustible igniting at once. Bombs away, turning for home. The formation wheeled. 42 B-17s now. 1 lost. 90 men who'd woken up this morning. 10 made it out. 80 didn't. Brown forced the math from his mind. Think about that later. Or never. Lane's voice cut through sharp with urgency. "Jets. 2 o'clock high. Multiple contacts. Climbing fast." Brown's head snapped right. 4 shapes. Sleek. Alien. Moving at speeds that violated physics. Messerschmitt Me-262s. The future. The nightmare. Time slowed. Brown's training kicked in. Identify, assess, react. But training had no answers for this. No doctrine for propeller aircraft fighting jets. 1 262 rolled and dove toward the bombers. Even from 2 miles away, Brown could see the speed, the impossible, brutal speed. This was the moment. The moment every manual said was unwinnable. Brown pushed his throttle to the firewall and turned toward the diving jet. His father's voice. "Son, they're going to tell you it's impossible. They're going to say you can't. But here's the secret: impossible just means nobody's done it yet." Brown's thumb settled on the gun trigger. His breathing steadied. His vision cleared. Nobody's done it yet. "Red flight." He called, voice steady as tempered steel. "We're engaging the jets. Stay with me. Don't let them reach the bombers." Lane's response came immediately. "With you, lead." Brantley, let's make history. The 4 Mustangs rolled toward the 4 jets. 30,000 feet above, burning Berlin propeller-driven fighters turned to face the future head-on. Brown's thumb tightened on the trigger. His aircraft screamed toward the diving jet. Airspeed climbing. 380, 400, 420. The Mustang shuddering at the edge of its envelope. The jet was faster, but it had to slow down to attack the bombers, had to drop speed to aim, and in that moment, that one critical moment, it would be vulnerable. Brown waited. Patient. Disciplined. Everything Tuskegee had taught him compressed into this single instant. The jet began its attack run. Started to slow. Now. Brown pulled lead, calculated deflection, and fired. The sky erupted in tracers and flame. The tracers connected. Brown watched them arc through frozen air, brilliant orange lines cutting across 30,000 feet of nothingness. 6 streams converging on a single point. The Me-262's left engine. Time fractured into fragments. The jet's turbine housing erupted. Not an explosion, a disintegration. Metal petals peeling back like a flower opening too fast. Black smoke poured out thick and oily. The aircraft shuddered, its perfect aerodynamic form suddenly wrong, suddenly mortal. Brown's finger came off the trigger. His Mustang screamed past the wounded jet, close enough to see the pilot's helmet through the canopy, close enough to see the man's head snap toward him in shock. For one frozen second, their eyes met. German and American, white and black, future and past. Then Brown was past, pulling up hard, bleeding speed, searching for the next threat. "Lead, that's a kill." Lane's voice cracked with disbelief. "You got him. He's going down." Brown didn't look back. Couldn't. 3 more jets still prowled the bomber formation, and celebration was a luxury measured in corpses. "Red flight, stay on mission. Where are the other 3? Brantley's voice breathless. "One's diving on the bombers from 11 o'clock. I'm on him." "Negative, Red 2. You can't catch. Watch me." Brown's head swiveled left. There, Brantley's Mustang in a near vertical dive, screaming after a Me-262 that was lining up on the lead B-17. The jet had maybe 5 seconds to firing position. Brantley had maybe 4 seconds to stop it. The physics were impossible. The jet was faster. Period. End of equation. But Brantley wasn't trying to be faster. He was trying to be there first. Brown watched his friend's aircraft fall like a meteor propeller, screaming airframe shaking itself apart. The Mustang wasn't built for this. Structural limits were being exceeded. Wings might fold, tail might separate, engine might grenade. Brantley didn't care. The jet pilot must have seen him in the last instant, must have felt the wrongness of a propeller fighter closing when it shouldn't be able to. The 262 tried to juke right, tried to abort the attack run. Too late. Brantley fired. Not a long burst. Maybe 1 second, maybe less. But at that dive speed, with that closure rate, 1 second was enough. Hits sparkled across the jet's right engine, then the left, the pilot's canopy, the fuselage. The Me-262 disintegrated, not gradually, instantly. Structural failure at 500 miles per hour. Wings sheared off. Tail section tumbled away. The fuselage became a coffin falling toward Berlin. Brantley pulled up, or tried to. His Mustang was doing 480 miles per hour in a dive well past redline. Brown watched the wings flex, watched the entire airframe bend under G-forces that should have snapped it like balsa wood. "Pull up, Charles. Easy. Easy." "I'm trying." Brantley's voice strained words forced out against the pressure crushing his chest. The Mustang's nose came up, degree by degree. The aircraft was shaking so violently Brown could see it from 200 yards away. Any second, something would fail. Landing gear would tear loose, a wing spar would crack, the propeller reduction gearbox would explode. The nose kept rising, still diving, but leveling. Leveling. Brantley emerged from the dive at 15,000 feet, still supersonic, his aircraft trailing vapor from every surface. He'd pulled maybe 9 Gs, maybe 10. Should have been unconscious. Should have been dead. Red 2, you still with us? Brantley's laugh came through ragged, half-crazed. Still here, Led. Couldn't let that bastard kill our bombers. Good shooting. Now get back in formation before you fall apart. Roger that. I think I need to change my shorts, though. Lane's voice cut through. Third jet high and right. He's running. Brown's eyes found it, the third, ME-262, climbing hard, abandoning the fight. Smart pilot. Watched 2 impossible kills in 30 seconds and decided survival beat glory. Let him go. We stick with 4 o'clock low 4th jet inbound. Brown's stomach dropped. He'd lost track of the 4th jet. Basic mistake. Fatal mistake. The 4th Me-262 was coming in low and fast under the bomber formation where the Mustang escorts had been drawn high by the other 3. A trap. They'd been watching, learning, adapting. And now that 4th jet had a clean shot at 3 undefended B-17s. Earl Lane was already moving. Brown didn't see him decide, didn't hear him call it. Just watched Lane's Mustang roll inverted and pull, entering a split S that pointed his nose straight down. 3, what are you doing? Lane didn't answer, didn't have breath to answer. He was in his own race now, falling versus flying physics versus will. The jet was maybe 8 seconds from firing position. Lane was maybe 12 seconds from intercept. The math didn't work. But Lane wasn't thinking about math. He was thinking about geometry. He wasn't trying to catch the jet from behind. He was trying to cut across its path, force it to break off, or risk a head-on collision. Brown watched it unfold like a chess problem. Lane diving, jet closing, bombers oblivious, everything converging on a single point in space and time. 6 seconds. 5. Lane's dive was steeper than Brantley's had been, more reckless. His airspeed climbed past 450, past 470, past 490. The Mustang was coming apart, had to be. Metal fatigue, rivet stress, something would fail. 4 seconds. 3. The jet pilot saw Lane coming. Had to make a choice, abort the attack or die in a mid-air collision. He chose survival. Broke hard right, abandoning his firing solution. Lane's guns opened up as the jet turned. Deflection shot almost 90 degrees, one of the hardest shots in aerial combat. The kind of shot you practice 100 times and miss 99. Lane made it. Tracers walked across the jet's turn radius. The pilot tried to tighten, tried to evade. One of Lane's rounds, maybe only one, punched through the left engine cowling. The turbine exploded. Not like Brown's kill, a gradual disintegration. This was instant catastrophic failure. The entire engine separated from the airframe, tumbling away, trailing fire. The jet, suddenly asymmetric, rolled hard left. The pilot tried to compensate, but at 500 miles per hour with only one engine. Compensation was theory, not practice. The ME-262 entered a flat spin, unrecoverable. The pilot ejected, first German pilot Brown had ever seen bail out, parachute blossoming white against dark smoke. Lane pulled out of his dive at 8,000 feet. His Mustang was barely flying. The left aileron was bent. The right wing had a visible buckle in the skin. When he tried to climb back to formation altitude, the aircraft shook so badly Brown thought it might shake itself to pieces. 3, you need to head back to base. That bird's not going to make it home. Negative lead. Lane's voice was steady despite everything. I can fly her, and we're still 700 miles from Ramatelli. Earl. I'm staying with the bombers, Rose. That's the mission. Brown wanted to order him back. Wanted to tell him he'd done enough, killed a jet, saved 3 bombers, earned the right to survive. But he understood. This wasn't about survival. Never had been. Copy 3. Stay in formation. We'll get you home. The 4th jet, the one that had run, didn't come back. Smart pilot Brown thought again. watched 3 jets die in 3 minutes and decided discretion beat duty. The bomber formation turned west heading home. Behind them, Berlin burned. Ahead, 830 miles of hostile sky and the thin hope of making it through. Brown's hands were shaking on the stick. Adrenaline crash. It happened after every combat the body's delayed recognition of mortality. He'd been seconds from death multiple times and his hindbrain was finally catching up to that fact. He forced his breathing steady, counted, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. The oxygen mask rubber tasted like rubber and fear. Red flight sound off, damage report. Red 2, some vibration but she's flying. Red 3, aileron damage, wing skin buckled. But I'm here. Red 4, all good lead. All good. Right. They just killed 3 German jets and propeller-driven fighters that shouldn't have been able to touch them. They'd violated every tactical manual, broken every rule of aerial physics, and somehow survived. Brown's radio crackled. Different voice. Bomber frequency. Red-tail escorts, this is Big Friend lead. The bomber pilot's voice thick with emotion. I don't know how you did what you just did, but you saved my aircraft and my crew. My boys are alive because of you. I don't... He paused. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. Brown keyed his mic. Just doing our job, Big Friend. Get your men home safe. Roger that, Red-tail. And when we get back, first rounds on me. I don't care what they say about... He stopped himself, caught himself. What they say about colored pilots. What they say about Negroes flying fighters. What they say about whether we're as good as white boys. First rounds on me, the bomber pilot finished quietly. Copy that, Big Friend. We'll hold you to it. Brown switched back to his flight frequency. Brantley was humming, actually humming, some jazz tune from a club in Philly. He did that after combat when the fear caught up to him and he needed something to fill the silence. Lane was quiet. Lane was always quiet after a fight, reviewing every decision, every mistake, cataloging lessons learned. Brown checked his fuel. They'd burned through a third of their tanks in combat, high-speed maneuvering, full throttle, diving the engines, gulping gas faster than cruise settings. Red flight fuel check. 2 has 180 gallons. 3 has 165. 4 has 190. Brown did the math. At cruise power, they'd make Ramatelli with reserves. At combat power, if they had to fight again, they'd die in the Alps or ditch in the Adriatic. Maintain cruise settings. No unnecessary maneuvering. If we see bandits, we evade, we don't engage. Roger that, lead. The formation settled into the long flight home. The sun was starting its descent, painting the clouds in shades of orange and gold, beautiful and meaningless. Brown had learned not to see beauty at altitude. Beauty was distraction. His mind kept replaying the engagement, the jet in his gun sight, the moment the engine came apart. The impossible geometry of Brantley's dive lane's deflection shot. They'd done it. 3 jets, 3 kills. First time in history, propeller fighters had defeated Me-262s in air-to-air combat, but the cost was there visible in Lane's damaged aircraft, in Brantley's borderline suicidal dive, in Brown's own hands that wouldn't stop shaking. They'd survived this time. Next time, the jets would adapt, learn, come with better tactics, more speed, different angles. Next time might not end with 3 red-tails going home. 10:47 hours. Over the Alps. Lane's Mustang was getting worse. The vibration in his right wing had spread to the entire airframe. He was flying with constant right rudder pressure to compensate for the damaged aileron. At 20,000 feet in thin air, every control input was a negotiation with physics. 3, how you holding up? I'm here, lead. She's flying. That's enough. Brown watched Lane's aircraft. The buckle in the wing skin had grown stress fractures spreading like spider webs. If that wing failed at altitude, Lane wouldn't have time to bail out. He'd ride the aircraft down conscious the whole way, knowing exactly how it ended. Earl, you need to drop altitude. Thicker air will help with stability. If I drop altitude, I lose the glide ratio if the engine quits. I stay here. Stubborn. Lane was always stubborn when he was scared. Used logic as a shield against fear. Earl. I'm staying here, Roz. Discussion's over. Brown let it go. Lane was a grown man, a fighter pilot trained to make life and death decisions at 400 miles per hour. If he thought staying high was the play, Brown had to trust that. even if it meant watching his friend's aircraft shake itself to pieces. Brantley's voice broke the tension. You know what's funny? We just killed 3 German jets and I still gotta go back to a segregated base. Can't eat in the same mess hall as white officers. Can't use the same damn bathroom. Nobody responded. What was there to say? We saved their lives up here, but on the ground we're still colored boys. Still dangerous. Still not good enough to drink from the same water fountain. Charles, Lane said quietly. No, I'm serious. What are we even fighting for? Germany says we're subhuman. America says we're second class. Where's the difference? Brown understood the anger, felt it himself burning under his ribs like slow acid. They'd proven themselves in every measurable way, and it changed nothing. Victory in combat didn't earn respect on the ground. We're fighting, Brown said finally, because if we don't, who will? And because every mission, every kill, every bomber we bring home is proof. Proof they can't ignore forever. You really believe that? I have to. The Alps passed beneath. White peaks, blue valleys, the same mountains they'd crossed on the way in. How many hours ago 3-4 felt like days? 11:42 hours. Northern Italy. Ramatelli appeared on the horizon, a dirt strip carved into farmland, temporary structures, the kind of base that existed only because war demanded it, home such as it was. Red Flight, this is home plate. You are cleared for landing. Pattern is clear. Brown keyed his mic. Copy, home plate. Red Flight inbound. Be advised, Red 3 has damage, may need emergency equipment on standby. Roger, Red Lead. Crash trucks are rolling now. Lane's voice. I don't need crash trucks, I'm bringing her in clean. Your choice, 3, but they'll be there anyway. Lane went silent. Pride versus pragmatism. The eternal struggle. Brown entered the pattern first, dropping gear and flaps bleeding airspeed. The runway rose to meet him. Wheels chirped on dirt. He was down. Still alive. Mission 48 complete. Brantley landed next, his approach perfect despite whatever damage his airframe had taken. Lane came in last. His approach was shallow, compensating for the damaged wing. He held speed longer than normal, afraid the wing would stall asymmetrically and roll him inverted at 100 feet. The Mustang touched down hard, bounced once settled. Lane kept it straight through pure force of will, wrestling the controls. He rolled to the end of the runway and stopped. The engine coughed once and died. Fuel exhaustion. He'd timed it perfectly, landed with maybe 2 minutes of fuel remaining. Brown taxied back to the flight line. Ground crews were already swarming the aircraft, shouting questions, pointing at damage. Sergeant Webb appeared at his wing, eyes wide. Lieutenant, what happened up there? Brown popped the canopy. Cold air rushed in, shocking after hours of recycled oxygen. Jets, he said simply. Me-262s. And you're back, all of you. All of us. Webb stared. Sir, the briefing said jets were impossible to. I know what the briefing said, Sergeant. Brown unbuckled his harness, suddenly exhausted. Write this down, the briefings are wrong. He climbed out of the cockpit on legs that barely supported him. His flight suit was soaked with sweat despite the cold. His hands still shook. Brantley was already on the ground, gesturing wildly, telling the story to anyone who'd listen. And I dove had to be 480 miles per hour. The wings were bending, I thought they'd snap clean off. Lane stood beside his aircraft, staring at the damaged wing. The crash trucks had arrived, but he'd waved them off. Now he just stood there, running his hand along the buckled metal. Brown walked over. You okay? I could have died. Lane's voice was flat. That wing could have folded at any second. I could have died, and I kept flying anyway. But you didn't die. You're here. This time. Lane turned to him. What about next time, Roz? How many times can we do the impossible before the impossible kills us? Brown didn't have an answer, because Lane was right. They'd won today through skill and desperation and sheer bloody-minded refusal to accept defeat. But luck was a finite resource, and they'd burned through a year's worth in 3 minutes over Berlin. Come on, Brown said. Debriefings in 20 minutes. Intelligence is going to want every detail. 3 jet kills, Lane said softly. First time in history. We made history today. Yeah, we did. They walked toward the briefing room, 2 tired pilots in sweat-stained flight suits carrying the weight of the impossible on their shoulders. Behind them, ground crews swarmed Lane's Mustang, already calculating repairs. The red tail gleamed in the afternoon sun, chipped paint and damaged metal, and still somehow beautiful. 3 propeller fighters had defeated 3 jets. The future had met the past over Berlin, and the past had won. For now. The briefing room was already full when they walked in. Intelligence officers. Flight surgeons. Colonel Davis standing at the front with his arms crossed. Every head turned. Brown felt their stares. Felt the weight of disbelief, skepticism, the unspoken question hanging in the air like smoke. Did they really do it? Gentlemen. Davis's voice cut through the murmur. Sit. Brown, Brantley, and Lane took seats in the front row. Behind them, pilots from other flights whispered past notes, tried to piece together what had happened at 30,000 feet over Berlin. An intelligence captain stepped forward, clipboard in hand. Lieutenant Brown, I need you to walk me through the engagement, start to finish, every detail. Brown took a breath. His throat was dry, raw from breathing pure oxygen for 6 hours. We were escorting the 5th Bombardment Wing on their egress from Berlin. Approximately 0999 hours. Altitude 25,000 feet. 4 Me-262 jets attacked the bomber formation from multiple vectors. 4 jets. The captain's voice was flat, unconvinced. You're certain? I'm certain. And you engaged all 4? We engaged 3. The 4th broke off after witnessing the first kills. The captain wrote something on his clipboard. Brown couldn't see what, but he knew skepticism when he heard it. Describe your engagement, Lieutenant. The first jet. Brown closed his eyes, calling up the memory. The first 262 was diving on the lead bombers. I intercepted from altitude, used my dive speed to match his approach velocity, fired a 2-second burst at his left engine. Turbine failed catastrophically. The aircraft entered an uncontrolled descent. You're saying you caught a jet in a dive. I'm saying I intercepted his attack vector before he completed it. That's not possible, Lieutenant. The Me-262's maximum speed is... I know what the manual says, Captain. Brown opened his eyes. I also know what I saw. What I did. That jet is scattered across Berlin right now. You want to tell me it didn't happen? The room went silent. Davis spoke, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Captain, these men just accomplished what every fighter group in the European theater said couldn't be done. I suggest you listen to their account before you dismiss it. The intelligence captain's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Continue, Lieutenant. Brown described Brantley's kill next. The suicidal dive, the impossible closure rate, the jet disintegrating under concentrated fire. Then Lane's deflection shot the 1 in 100 hit that had taken out the jet's engine at 90 degrees. The captain wrote it all down his pen, scratching across paper. But his face said what his mouth wouldn't. I don't believe you. When Brown finished, the captain turned to Brantley. Captain Brantley, your account matches Lieutenant Brown's. Every word. Brantley leaned back in his chair. You want me to draw you a picture? I can draw real good. That won't be necessary. Because I'll draw it. Show you exactly how I put that jet into the ground. Captain Brantley, you don't believe us. Brantley's voice went hard. That's what this is about, isn't it? 3 colored pilots say they killed 3 jets and you think we're lying, making it up, trying to play hero. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Brantley stood. You know what? Check the gun camera footage. Check the bomber crew's testimony. Check the wreckage if you can find it. But don't sit there with your clipboard and your doubt like we're making this up for attention. Davis's voice cracked like a whip. Brantley, sit down. Brantley sat. But the anger remained coiled tight in his shoulders. The intelligence captain cleared his throat. I'll need to verify these claims with bomber crew testimony and any available reconnaissance photographs. Until then, these are listed as probable kills, not confirmed. Probable. Lane spoke for the first time, his voice quiet and dangerous. I watched my engine nearly tear itself apart pulling out of that dive. My aircraft is barely flyable, and you're calling it probable. Those are the regulations, Lieutenant. Then your regulations are wrong. Davis stepped forward. Gentlemen, that's enough. Captain, you have your statements. Dismissed. The intelligence captain left, taking his skepticism with him. The room exhaled tension, bleeding out in mutters and movement. Davis waited until the door closed. Then he turned to Brown, Brantley, and Lane. What you did today was extraordinary. You know that. I know that. History will know that. He paused. But history has to be convinced first. And right now there are people who will do everything they can to dismiss what happened over Berlin. Because we're black, Brantley said. Because you're black, Davis confirmed. If 3 white pilots from the 4th Fighter Group had killed 3 jets, they'd be on the cover of Life magazine tomorrow. You 3. They'll call it exaggeration, misidentification, combat confusion. Brown felt the familiar weight settle on his chest. The weight of proving, always proving that they were good enough, skilled enough, worthy enough. So what do we do, sir? You keep flying, keep fighting, keep bringing those bombers home. Davis met Brown's eyes. Let the bureaucrats worry about credit and recognition. You worry about the mission. Yes, sir. Davis left. The other pilots filtered out, heading to chow or their bunks or wherever pilots went to process the fact that 3 of their own had just rewritten the tactical manual. Brown, Brantley, and Lane sat alone in the empty briefing room. Probable kills, Brantley muttered. Probable, like we imagined those jets falling out of the sky. They'll confirm it, Lane said. The bomber crews saw everything. They'll confirm. Will they? Brantley turned to him. You think those white boys are going to stand up and say 3 colored pilots saved their lives? You think they're going to put their names on a statement that makes us heroes? Lane didn't answer, because they all knew the truth. Some crews would verify, some wouldn't. And the ones who did would face questions, pressure, subtle suggestions that maybe they'd been mistaken, maybe it was confusion, maybe those kills belonged to someone else. Brown stood. His legs ached. His back ached. Everything ached. I need food and sleep, in that order. They walked to the mess hall in silence. The base was alive with rumors, already ground crews talking, other pilots speculating, stories spreading like wildfire. 3 jets, 3 kills. The Red-Tails did the impossible. But when they entered the mess hall, the room didn't erupt in applause, didn't stand and cheer, just went quiet the way rooms went quiet when something uncomfortable walked in. They got their food, reconstituted eggs, toast, coffee that tasted like diesel fuel, and sat at their usual table. The colored pilot's table. Separate but equal, the Army called it. Separate anyway. Brown ate mechanically, tasting nothing. His mind was back in the cockpit, watching tracers arc toward a jet that shouldn't have been catchable. Watching Brantley's wings flex under impossible G-forces. Watching Lane's aircraft shake itself to pieces. They'd survived. All 3. Against odds that said they shouldn't have. But survival wasn't victory. Not when victory required recognition, validation, proof that what they'd done mattered. A white pilot approached their table. Lieutenant Morrison, 301st Fighter Squadron. Brown had flown near him before, never with him. Brown. Morrison stood, awkward hands in his pockets. I heard what happened. Over Berlin. Yeah, that true. You guys killed 3 jets. Brown looked up. Morrison's face was open, curious. No skepticism visible. But you could never tell. Skepticism learned to hide behind friendly questions. It's true. Morrison nodded slowly. That's incredible. I mean, we've been trying to figure out how to fight those things for months, and you just... He stopped. How'd you do it? We didn't run, Brown said simply. Everyone else sees a jet and breaks off. We stayed, forced them to fight on our terms. Your terms being slow. The jets can't turn worth a damn below 300 miles per hour. We made them slow down to attack the bombers, then we killed them in the turn. Morrison absorbed this. That's actually brilliant. Simple but brilliant. Simple's usually best. Listen. Morrison glanced back at his table where other white pilots were watching. Some of us, we wanted you to know what you did today matters. I don't care what intelligence says. I don't care what gets written in the reports. You saved those bomber crews. You proved something important. Brown felt something in his chest unclench. just slightly. Thanks, Morrison. No, thank you. Morrison extended his hand. Brown shook it. The handshake lasted maybe 2 seconds, but those 2 seconds felt like progress. Small progress. Insufficient progress. But progress. Morrison left. Brantley watched him go, his expression unreadable. One white pilot says thank you and suddenly everything's okay. No, Brown said. Everything's not okay, but it's something. It's not enough. Nothing's ever enough, Charles, but you take what you can get. They finished eating in silence. Around them, the mess hall returned to its normal rhythm, conversations, laughter, the clatter of metal trays. The moment passed. Life continued. 16:30 hours. Pilot quarters. Brown lay on his cot, staring at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he was back in the cockpit. Tracers arcing, jets falling. The impossible geometry of combat at 500 miles per hour. His hands still shook. He pressed them against his chest, trying to still them through force of will. The door opened. His father walked in. No, not his father. Couldn't be his father. His father was in Washington, D.C., running his dental practice, living his life. But the man standing in the doorway had his father's face, his father's voice. Roscoe. Brown sat up, blinked. The figure remained. You're not here. I'm always here. His father sat on the adjacent cot. Every time you fly, every time you doubt, I'm here. I'm hallucinating. Combat fatigue. Adrenaline crash. Maybe, his father smiled, or maybe you need to hear what I have to say. Brown rubbed his eyes. When he looked again, his father was still there. Real or imagined, it didn't matter. What do you want to tell me? That you did something today that will echo through history. 3 jets, Roscoe. 3 impossible victories. You know what that means. It means we got lucky. No. His father's voice went firm. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. You prepared your entire life for today. Tuskegee. Every mission. Every hour of training. Today was the culmination of everything you've become. They don't believe us. Intelligence thinks we're exaggerating. Let them think what they want. You know the truth. Your wingmen know the truth. The bomber crews you saved know the truth. History will sort out the rest. Brown lay back down. I'm tired, Dad. So tired. I know, son. But you can't stop now. This is just the beginning. Beginning of what? Of proving that excellence has no color. That courage doesn't care about the uniform it wears. That 3 men in propeller planes can defeat the future itself if they refuse to believe in impossible. Brown closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his father was gone. The room was empty except for him and the weight of the day pressing down like atmospheric pressure. He slept. Finally. Dreamlessly. 1800 hours. Colonel Davis's office. Brown woke to someone shaking his shoulder. Sergeant Webb, looking anxious. Lieutenant Colonel wants to see you now. Brown pulled himself upright, still half asleep. What's wrong? Don't know, sir, but he said immediately. Brown dressed quickly, splashed water on his face, and walked to Davis's office. Brantley and Lane were already there, standing at attention. Davis sat behind his desk, a telegram in his hand. His face was unreadable. At ease, gentlemen. Davis set down the telegram. I just received confirmation from 15th Air Force Headquarters. Gun camera footage from the B-17s has been reviewed. Testimony from 17 bomber crew members has been recorded and verified. He paused. Your kills are confirmed. Official. All 3 Me-262s are credited to the 332nd Fighter Group. Brown, Brantley, Lane. You are now officially the first Allied pilots to shoot down German jets in air-to-air combat. The room was silent. Congratulations, Davis said. You just made history. Brown felt nothing. Should have felt pride, vindication, triumph. Felt nothing except exhaustion. Brantley broke the silence. So what happens now, sir? Now. Davis smiled, tired and genuine. Now you rest. Tomorrow you fly again. Because the war doesn't stop for recognition. Will there be press, sir, newspapers? Davis's smile faded. There will be an official announcement through Army channels. Whether the press picks it up, he shrugged. That's beyond my control. Meaning no. Meaning 3 black pilots killing 3 jets wasn't the kind of story the press wanted to tell. Not when it complicated the narrative, raised uncomfortable questions, made people think twice about who could be a hero. Understood, sir. They left Davis's office. The sun was setting, painting the base in shades of orange and gold. Another day ending. Another day survived. Lane spoke first. We did it. It's official. History books, Roz. We're in the history books. Maybe, Brown said. What do you mean, maybe? I mean, history is written by the people who control the pens. And right now, those people don't want stories about colored pilots being heroes. Brantley lit a cigarette. So, we did the impossible for nothing. That what you're saying? No. We did it because it needed doing. Because bomber crews needed us. Because someone had to prove that those jets could be beaten. Brown looked at his 2 friends, these men he'd trusted with his life dozens of times. Whether anyone remembers our names, that's not up to us. They stood there as the sun disappeared below the horizon, 3 pilots who'd touched the edge of the impossible and lived to tell about it. 3 men who'd proven something profound and important and necessary. And in the gathering darkness, with the day's victories already fading into bureaucratic reports and classified documents, they understood the hardest truth of all, that doing the impossible was the easy part. Getting anyone to believe you did it, that was the real fight. The fight that lasted decades instead of seconds. The fight that had no clear victory, no confirmed kill, no moment when you could say, definitively, we won. But they'd keep fighting it anyway, because that's what Tuskegee had taught them. Not just how to fly, not just how to fight, how to endure. Come on, Brown said. Let's get some sleep. Mission briefings at 0500 tomorrow. Another Berlin run, Lane asked. Probably. Any chance we see more jets? Probably. Brantley laughed, the sound carrying no humor. Good. I want them to know what it feels like. To be outmatched and outgunned and written off as impossible. I want them to feel what we've felt our whole lives. And then I want to beat them anyway. They walked toward their quarters, 3 shadows in the darkness, carrying the weight of the day and the weight of history and the weight of proving, always proving that they belonged in the sky. Behind them, ground crews worked under floodlights, repairing Lane's damaged Mustang, preparing all 64 aircraft for tomorrow's mission. The red tails gleamed in the artificial light, battle-scarred, battered, still flying, like the men who flew them. Sleep lasted 3 hours before the nightmares started. Brown woke at 2100 hours, gasping, his flight suit soaked through. In the dream, he'd been diving after the jet again, but this time his guns wouldn't fire. Just clicked empty while the jet turned and came back, cannons blazing, tearing his Mustang apart piece by piece. He sat up, breathing hard. Across the room, Brantley's cot was empty. Lane was there, lying on his back, eyes open, staring at nothing. You okay? Brown asked. Can't sleep. Lane's voice was flat. Keep seeing that wing buckle. Keep feeling it. That moment when the whole aircraft should have come apart and didn't. But it didn't come apart. You made it back. This time, Lane turned his head. What about next time? What about the time after that? How many times can we cheat death before it stops letting us? Brown had no answer, because Lane was asking the question every combat pilot asked eventually. When does luck run out? Where's Brantley? Don't know. Haven't seen him since Chow. Brown pulled on his boots and went looking. Found Brantley outside, sitting on the wing of his Mustang, smoking and staring at the stars. Couldn't sleep either. Brantley didn't look at him. I keep thinking about that dive. I pulled 9 G's rows, maybe 10. Should have blacked out. Should have died. But I didn't, and you know why. Why? Because I was too angry to die. Brantley took a long drag. I saw that jet lining up on those B-17s, saw it about to kill 10 men who never did anything to me except exist in the same uniform, and I couldn't let it happen. Couldn't let one more thing go wrong in this whole wrong world. You saved their lives. And tomorrow I'll go back to being colored. Back to yes sir and no sir and stepping off the sidewalk when white folks walk past. Back to pretending that killing 3 jets makes me equal. Brown climbed onto the wing, sat beside his friend. The metal was cold through his pants, the night air colder. You remember what Davis said about history? That it'll sort itself out. Yeah, I remember. You believe him. Brantley was quiet for a long time. I want to. God, I want to believe that what we did today matters. That somewhere, someday, someone will point to March 24th, 1945 and say, that's when 3 black pilots proved they were as good as anyone. But I don't know, Roz. I just don't know. They sat in silence, 2 men who'd touched the impossible and found it wanting. Found that victory without recognition was just exhaustion with extra steps. Come on, Brown said finally. Get some sleep. We fly again in 9 hours. Where, back to Berlin? Probably. Think we'll see more jets? Count on it. Brantley crushed his cigarette against the wing, leaving a small black mark. Good. I'm not done proving things yet. March 25th, 1945. 0500 hours. Briefing room. They were right. Berlin again. Different target, Tempelhof Aerodrome, one of the Luftwaffe's main jet bases. 64 Mustangs escorting 38 B-17s deep into the dying heart of the Reich. Colonel Davis stood before the map pointer, tapping the red line that marked their route. Intelligence reports increased jet activity at Tempelhof. Estimate between 8 and 12 Me-262s operational. They know we're coming. They'll be waiting. Brown felt his stomach tighten. 8 to 12 jets. Yesterday they'd faced 4 and barely survived. Today could be a slaughter. Your orders remain the same. Stay with the bombers. No free hunting, no glory chasing. You keep those B-17s alive and you come home. Davis paused. After yesterday's confirmed kills, the Luftwaffe knows about the 332nd. They know about the Red-Tails. They'll be specifically looking for you. Someone in the back muttered, "Wonderful." Davis ignored it. Weather's clear all the way to target. Flak will be extreme over Berlin. Expected mission time 6 hours. Questions? Lane raised his hand. Sir, my aircraft took significant damage yesterday. Maintenance says they patched it, but... Lieutenant Lane, if maintenance says your bird's airworthy, it's airworthy. You have a problem with that. Lane hesitated. No, sir. But Brown saw the doubt in his friend's eyes, saw the fear that today would be the day the patches failed, the repairs gave way, the luck ran out. Wheels up in 45 minutes. Dismissed. 05:45 hours. Flight line. Brown did his walk-around, checking control surfaces, looking for leaks, any sign of mechanical failure. His Mustang looked tired. Hydraulic fluid stains under the wing. Paint chipped by flak fragments. Bullet holes patched with aluminum tape. But she'd brought him home 48 times. Would bring him home a 49th. Had to believe that. Sergeant Webb appeared with the fuel report. Topped off, Lieutenant. 269 gallons. You're good for 7 hours if you fly her gentle. Gentle's not in the mission plan today, Sergeant. I know, sir. Webb's hand rested on the fuselage. But bring her back anyway, please. Brown understood. Ground crews bonded with their aircraft, felt personally responsible when planes didn't come home. Webb had maintained this Mustang for 6 months. It was his baby as much as Brown's. I'll bring her back. Promise. 0551 hours. Takeoff. The formation lifted off in pairs, climbing into a dawn that looked too peaceful for what was coming. Brown's hands moved through the familiar motions, gear up, flaps up, trim, throttle back, to climb power. Lane and Brantley settled into position. Red flight, good formation. Maintain climb to Angels 25. They climbed in silence. Brown checked his oxygen flow, his fuel pressure, his oil temperature. Everything normal. Everything ready for combat. Except him. He wasn't ready. Didn't think he'd ever be ready again. Yesterday had taken something from him. Some reservoir of certainty, some fundamental belief that skill and training could overcome anything. They'd won yesterday through desperation and recklessness and luck that shouldn't have held. Today that luck might fail. Lane's voice broke the silence. You ever think about what happens if we don't make it back? Don't talk like that. I'm serious, Rose. We die today, what changes? Does anyone remember? Does anyone care? The bomber crews care. The men whose lives we save care. Until they get home and forget we exist. Until they go back to their segregated lives and we become a footnote. Oh yeah, there were some colored pilots. Flew pretty good, I guess. Brown wanted to argue. Wanted to say Lane was wrong, cynical, too focused on the negative. But he couldn't. Because Lane might be right. We care, Brown said finally. We remember, and maybe that's enough. Is it? It has to be. 08:43 hours. German airspace. The first German fighters appeared right on schedule, a dozen FW-190s climbing to intercept. The Red-Tails shifted formation, positioning themselves between the threat and the bombers. Brown's pulse kicked up. Not fear, muscle memory, his body preparing for violence. The German fighters split into 3 groups, trying to divide the escort's attention. Classic tactic, usually effective. Red flight take the high group, blue flight middle, green flight low. Brown climbed toward the high group 4 FW-190s diving out of the sun. He rolled, pulled, got behind the lead fighter. The German pilot saw him, tried to brake left. Too slow. Brown fired. 1 second burst. Hits across the fuselage. The 190 rolled hard right, smoke trailing, diving away. Probable kill. Maybe confirmed. Didn't matter right now. Red 2, you got one closing from 4 o'clock. Brantley's voice. I see him braking right. Brown's head swiveled. Saw Brantley's Mustang in a tight spiral. A F-190 locked on his tail, closing for the kill. Brown rolled. Dove tried to get position. Lane got there first. His Mustang came screaming out of the sun, a perfect diving attack that put him on the German 6. One burst. The 190's tail section disintegrated. The aircraft tumbled uncontrolled, falling. Clear 2. Thanks 3, I owe you a drink. I'll collect. The German attack broke off. They'd lost 2 fighters for no kills, decided discretion beat valor. The bomber formation continued toward Berlin. 09:27 hours, approaching Tempelhof. The city appeared ahead, massive and wounded. Fires still burned from yesterday's raid. Smoke columns rose like pillars holding up a gray sky. Flat corridor ahead, Titan formation. The anti-aircraft fire started immediately, black puffs exploding in clusters, each one a dice roll between life and death. Brown flew through it, flinching at each nearby burst, knowing flinching meant nothing. Either the shrapnel hit you, or it didn't. A B-17 ahead took a hit. The number 3 engine erupted in flames. The pilot feathered it, shut it down, kept flying on 3 engines. Tough bastards, bomber pilots. The bombers lined up for their run. Bay doors opened. That's when the jets appeared. Not 4 this time, not even 8. 12 Me-262s climbed out of Tempelhof, a full squadron rising toward the bomber formation like sharks sensing blood. Brown's mouth went dry. Red flight, all flights, jets inbound, multiple contacts, count 12. The radio exploded with chatter. Fear, determination, pilots trying to process what they were seeing. Colonel Davis's voice cut through. All escorts maintain discipline. Stay with the bombers. Do not repeat. Do not break formation. But 12 jets against 64 Mustangs and 38 B-17s wasn't a fight. It was mathematics. Cold, brutal mathematics that said some of those bombers weren't coming home. The jets split into 4 groups of 3, attacking from different vectors simultaneously. Coordinated. Professional. Learning from yesterday's mistakes. Brown rolled toward the nearest group. Red flight on me. We take the high 3. Lane and Brantley stayed locked on his wings. 3 Mustangs against 3 jets. Yesterday's odds. Yesterday's impossible victory. Except yesterday, the jets had been arrogant, overconfident. Today, they were cautious, smart, using their speed advantage to dictate engagement terms. The lead jet dove toward the bombers, building speed. Brown tried to intercept, pushed his throttle to the firewall, dove after it. The jet was faster. Not much faster, maybe 50 miles per hour, but enough. Brown couldn't close the gap. Watched helplessly as the 262 lined up on a B-17 opened fire. 4 30mm cannons hammered the bomber's right wing. The wing folded. Just folded like paper creasing. The B-17 rolled inverted, fell dying. Brown counted parachutes. 3, 4, 5. 5 didn't get out. The jet pulled up, climbing away, untouchable. "Lead, I can't catch them," Brantley called. "They're too fast in the dive." "Stay with the formation. Wait for them to turn back for another pass." But the jets didn't turn back. They'd learned. Hit and run. Use speed breakaway climb. Set up for another attack. Never slow down. Never give the Mustangs a chance. Brown watched another jet attack another bomber. Watched the guns flash. Watched the bomber stagger. Number 2 engine exploding. That crew was luckier. The pilot kept it flying, pulled out of formation, headed for home on 3 engines with a prayer. This was what the Luftwaffe should have been doing all along, using the jets properly, tactically. And now that they'd learned the Red-Tail's discipline and skill meant nothing. You couldn't outfly physics. A third jet lined up on the lead B-17. Brown saw it coming, tried to intercept, knew he wouldn't make it. Lane saw it too. "I got him," Lane said quietly. "3, you can't." But Lane was already diving. Steeper than yesterday. More reckless. His damaged Mustang shaking itself apart in the thin air. Brown watched his friend fall like a stone, racing gravity and jets and time itself. The geometry was wrong. Lane couldn't possibly intercept. The numbers didn't work. Lane fired anyway. A desperate burst from maximum range tracers arcing across half a mile of empty sky. 1 round connected. 1 impossible shot out of hundreds. Hit the jet's left engine cowling. Not enough to destroy the engine. Just enough to damage it. The jet's pilot felt it knew something was wrong, aborted the attack run. Lane pulled out of his dive at 10,000 feet. His right wing buckled visibly. Metal screamed. 3, get out of there. Your wing's failing. I know trying controls are barely responding. Brown watched Lane fight his dying aircraft, watched him nurse it back toward formation, altitude every second, a negotiation with physics. The wing held, barely. Patches and prayers and sheer stubborn refusal to die. Lane made it back to formation. His Mustang was flying sideways, compensating for the damaged wing, burning fuel at twice the normal rate. 3, you need to head back to base. You're not going to make it home if you stay. Negative lead. I stay with the bombers. That's the mission. Earl. I stay with the bombers. Brown wanted to order him back. Wanted to tell him that heroism had limits, that survival mattered more than the mission. But he understood. Lane needed this. Needed to prove to himself more than anyone that he wouldn't quit. That damage and fear and impossible odds wouldn't break him. Copy 3. Stay in formation. The jets made 2 more passes, killing 1 more bomber, damaging 3 others. Then they broke off fuel or ammunition, exhausted, climbing back toward Tempelhof. The bomber formation turned for home. 33 B-17s remained, 5 lost, 50 men dead, 30 more wounded. The mathematics of aerial warfare. All flights sound off. Damage report. The reports came in. 3 Mustangs lost 2 to flak 1 to a jet. 4 more damaged, but flying. The 332nd had survived. Again. Barely. Brown's hands were shaking on the stick. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind exhaustion and the knowledge that they'd won nothing today. Just survived. There was a difference. 12:47 hours. Over the Alps. Lane's Mustang was dying. The wing buckle had spread stress fractures radiating from the impact point. He was flying with full opposite aileron, burning fuel to stay airborne. 3 fuel status. 40 gallons. Lane's voice was strained. Maybe less. Gauge is acting funny. Brown did the math. 40 gallons wouldn't get Lane back to Ramitelli. Wouldn't even get him across the Alps. He'd flame out over the mountains, have to bail out, pray the parachute opened before he hit a peak. 3, you need to bail out now, while you're over flat terrain. Negative. I can make it. Earl, you can't. The math doesn't work. Then I'll change the math. Brantley cut in. Earl, don't be stupid. Bail out. Live to fly another day. I'm not bailing out. Lane's voice went hard. I'm not giving them the satisfaction. I killed a jet yesterday. Saved a bomber today. I'm bringing my aircraft home, even if I have to glide the last 100 miles. Brown understood. Lane wasn't flying anymore. He was fighting. fighting every person who'd ever said he couldn't, who'd doubted, who'd dismissed, who'd written him off. The Mustang was just the vehicle for that fight. Copy 3. We'll stay with you. They flew through the Alps in formation, 3 red tails against the sky. Lane's Mustang got lower with each passing mile descending as fuel ran out and the engine began to starve. 30 gallons. 20. 10. 5. The engine coughed. Coughed again. 3, you need to bail out, now. Almost there. I can see the coast. Wow, the engine died. The propeller windmilled useless. Lane's Mustang became a glider trading altitude for distance, chasing an impossible dream of making it home. Brown and Brantley flanked him, flying slow flaps down, trying to stay with their friend as he fell toward the earth. Lane made it across the coastline, made it over the Adriatic, made it within sight of Ramatelli before he ran out of altitude. I'm going in. Tell Davis I made it home. Earl, tell him. Lane's Mustang touched down on the water at 100 miles per hour. The impact tore off the landing gear, ripped away the belly scoop. The aircraft skipped once, twice settled, started to sink. Brown circled, watching Lane climb out of the cockpit, inflate his life vest, drop into the water. Saw him wave one hand, raised defiant even now. 3's down, in the water, 5 miles off the coast. He's alive. Copy lead. Rescue boats deploying now. They circled until the boats arrived, until Lane was pulled from the water, until they confirmed he was safe. Only then did Brown turn for home. 14-12 hours. Ramatelli. Brown touched down on fumes, his own tanks nearly empty. Brantley landed behind him. They taxied to the line in silence. Colonel Davis was waiting. Lieutenant Lane. Safe, sir. Rescue boats picked him up. He'll be back on base by evening. Davis nodded. 5 bombers lost today. 16 Mustangs damaged. 3 pilots killed. Lieutenant Lane damn near joining them. Yes, sir. And the jets. Brown met his commander's eyes. We couldn't stop them, sir. They'd learned, used their speed properly. We did our best, but... He stopped. It wasn't enough. Davis was quiet for a long moment. Your best saved 28 bombers, Lieutenant. Brought 300 men home alive. In this war, that's all we can ask. It doesn't feel like enough, sir. It never does. Davis put a hand on Brown's shoulder. Get some rest. You've earned it. But rest felt wrong. 50 men had died today. Rest felt like betrayal. Brown walked to his quarters alone, lay down, didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling, watching the light fade as another day ended, another mission survived, another step closer to whatever came next. Outside ground crews worked through the evening, repairing damaged aircraft, preparing for tomorrow's mission. The war didn't stop, didn't pause, didn't care about exhaustion or doubt or the weight of impossible expectations. The red tails gleamed under floodlights, battered but unbroken, like the men who flew them. Victory had come yesterday, brief and bright, and already fading into memory. Today had brought only survival, hard-won, insufficient, and somehow still more than they had any right to expect. Earl Lane walked into the barracks at 18:30 hours, soaking wet, wrapped in a navy blanket, looking like a drowned cat. Brown and Brantley were waiting. You're an idiot, Brantley said. I know. You almost died. I know. And you'd do it again tomorrow, wouldn't you? Lane sat on his cot, water dripping onto the floor. In a heartbeat, Brown handed him dry clothes. Your Mustang's at the bottom of the Adriatic. Maintenance is furious. Davis is furious. The whole base thinks you've lost your mind. Have I? Probably. Brown sat across from him. But I understand why. Lane looked up. His eyes were hollow, exhausted. Do you really understand what it's like to know that no matter what we do, no matter how many jets we kill, how many bombers we save, how many impossible things we accomplish, it will never be enough? We'll always be proving ourselves. Always fighting twice as hard for half the recognition. The room went quiet. Because Lane had said what they'd all been thinking, feeling swallowing down for months. Yesterday we made history, Lane continued. 3 jets. First Allied pilots ever. And today they barely mentioned it, barely acknowledged it, like it was a footnote, a curiosity. Oh yes, some colored pilots did something interesting. Anyway, moving on. Brantley lit a cigarette. So what do we do? Quit, give up, prove them right. No. Lane's voice hardened. We keep flying, keep fighting, keep proving it over and over until they can't ignore us anymore. Until the evidence is so overwhelming, so undeniable, that even the most prejudiced bastard has to admit we belong in the sky. And if that never happens, Brown asked quietly. Lane met his eyes. Then we do it anyway. Because it's not about them. It's about us. About knowing in our hearts that we were good enough. That we did what they said was impossible. That we mattered. Brown felt something shift in his chest. A weight lifting. Not completely, never completely, but enough to breathe a little easier. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow's another mission. Berlin again. Always Berlin. April 15th, 1945. 0600 hours, 3 weeks later. Brown had flown 17 more missions since the day Lane ditched in the Adriatic. 17 more trips into German airspace, 17 more encounters with flak and fighters, and the ever-present possibility of death. They'd faced jets 6 more times, killed 2 more, lost 4 Mustangs and 3 pilots. The war was grinding toward its conclusion, Germany collapsing under the weight of Allied advances, but the dying wasn't finished yet. Colonel Davis called a formation at dawn. All remaining pilots, 51 now, down from the original 64, gathered in the briefing room. Davis stood before them, and for the first time, Brown could remember the colonel was smiling. Gentlemen, I have news. He paused, letting the tension build. Germany is finished. Our intelligence reports massive surrenders across the Western Front. Berlin is surrounded. Hitler is either dead or in hiding. The European war will be over within weeks. A cheer erupted. Pilots standing embracing the weight of months and years suddenly lifting. But Davis raised his hand. However, until official surrender is signed, we continue flying, we continue fighting, we finish what we started. The room quieted. One more thing. Davis's smile returned. The 332nd Fighter Group has been awarded a Distinguished Unit Citation for outstanding aerial combat performance. First all-black unit to receive this honor. Congratulations, gentlemen. You've earned it. Another cheer, louder this time. Brown felt Brantley grab him, shaking both of them, grinning like idiots. But Lane wasn't cheering. Lane was staring at Davis with an expression Brown couldn't quite read. After the briefing, Lane pulled Brown aside. You know what this means, right, the citation? It means we're being recognized, finally. It means they can't ignore us anymore, can't pretend we didn't matter, can't bury us in footnotes and colored pilot qualifiers. Lane's eyes were bright. We forced them to acknowledge us. We did. No, Roz, we really did. 3 jets on March 24th, 2 more after that. 96 confirmed air-to-air kills, over 15,000 sorties. Not a single bomber lost to enemy fighters under our escort for 6 months. The numbers don't lie. Brown understood then. Lane wasn't celebrating the award. He was celebrating the evidence, the undeniable mathematical proof that they'd been as good as anyone, better than most. So what happens now? Brown asked. Now, Lane smiled, tired but genuine. Now we go home, and we start the next fight. Which is making sure what we did matters, making sure it opens doors for the next generation, making sure our names don't get erased from history. May 8th, 1945, Victory in Europe Day. Brown was in the cockpit when the announcement came through. Germany had surrendered. Unconditional. Complete. The war in Europe was over. He sat there, engine idling, unable to process it. After all the missions, all the combat, all the friends lost, it was just over. Ended with a signature on paper rather than a final battle. He shut down the engine, climbed out. The base was erupting, pilots running, shouting someone had found alcohol from somewhere and was passing bottles around. But Brown felt nothing. Just emptiness, where the adrenaline and fear had lived for so long. Brantley found him sitting on his Mustang's wing. We won, Roz. We actually won. Yeah. You don't sound happy. Brown looked at his friend. I'm wondering what happens next. War's over. We go back to America, Back to segregation, back to being second-class citizens. We proved ourselves here, but does it matter there? Brantley sat beside him. I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. But I'll tell you what I know. I'm not the same person who left Philadelphia 2 years ago. I've flown 60 missions, killed 8 enemy aircraft, saved hundreds of lives. Nobody can take that from me. They'll try. Let them try. I know who I am now, what I'm capable of, and I'm done apologizing for existing. Brown nodded slowly. You heading back to Philly? Eventually, you... Don't know, maybe college. Davis mentioned some scholarship programs for veterans. Maybe I'll teach. Pass on what we learned here. You'd be a good teacher. You think... Brantley grinned. Hell no, you're way too serious. But you care about this stuff. About making sure it matters. Someone's got to do it. Lane appeared walking slowly, his legs still bandaged from the ditching 3 weeks ago. They're throwing a party in the mess hall. You two coming? In a minute, Brown said. Lane climbed onto the wing, settled beside them. 3 pilots who'd flown together, fought together, survived together. 3 men who'd proven something profound and important and necessary. You know what I keep thinking about, Lane said. March 24th. That first jet. The one you killed Roz. Do you remember the moment before you fired a... I remember. What were you thinking? Brown considered. I was thinking about every instructor who said I'd never make it. Every test designed to wash me out. Every time someone looked at me like I didn't belong. And I thought, not today. Today, I proved them wrong. And you did. We all did. They sat in silence as the sun set over Ramitelli Airfield, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The war was over. The fighting was done. But the battle, the real battle for recognition, equality, respect, was just beginning. Whatever happens next, Brantley said, we did something they can never take away. We were the first to kill jets, first all-black fighter group to receive a unit citation, first to prove beyond any doubt that excellence has no color. You think anyone will remember? Lane asked. Someone will. Maybe not next year, maybe not for decades, but someone will look at the records, see what we did, and understand what it meant. Brown hoped he was right. Hoped that somewhere someday 3 names, Roscoe Brown, Charles Brantley, Earl Lane, would be spoken with the respect they'd earned. But even if they weren't, even if history forgot them, they'd know. They'd carry the knowledge of March 24th, 1945 for the rest of their lives. The day they'd done the impossible. The day they'd defeated the future with nothing but skill and courage and unbreakable will. That would have to be enough. June 1945. Camp Kilmer, New Jersey. Separation processing. Brown stood in line with 300 other servicemen waiting to be officially discharged. The war was over. They were going home. A white lieutenant colonel walked past, stopped, stared at Brown's uniform, at the ribbons, at the Distinguished Flying Cross, at the Air Medal with 5 oak leaf clusters. You really earned those, boy. Brown met his eyes. Yes, sir. 63 combat missions, 5 confirmed kills, 16 bomber escorts where every single aircraft returned safely. Huh. The colonel looked skeptical. Didn't know you people could fly. Something in Brown snapped, not violently, just cleanly. The final thread of giving a damn what people like this thought. We can fly, sir. We proved it. The records are there if you care to look, but somehow I doubt you will. Easier to maintain your assumptions than confront evidence that challenges them. The colonel's face reddened. Watch your tone, Lieutenant. Or what, sir? You'll court-martial me. War's over. I'm being discharged in 3 hours. You have no authority over me anymore. Brown smiled, cold and sharp. And for the record, it's not you people. It's Lieutenant Brown. Combat veteran. Tuskegee Airmen. The man who killed a German jet in air-to-air combat while you were safe behind a desk. Sir. He walked away. Heard the colonel sputtering behind him. Didn't care. Brantley was waiting outside, grinning. You just told off a lieutenant colonel. I did. How's it feel? Liberating. They walked to the discharge office together. Inside, a clerk processed their papers with mechanical efficiency, barely looking up. Lieutenant Brown Roscoe. Serial number, Brown recited it. Combat decorations. Distinguished Flying Cross. Air Medal with 5 oak leaf clusters. Distinguished Unit Citation. The clerk's hand paused. He looked up. You with the 332nd? I was. The Tuskegee Airmen? Yes. The clerk's expression changed, shifted from bureaucratic indifference to something like respect. My brother flew B-17s, 301st Bombardment Group. He wrote home about you guys, said you saved his formation over Berlin, kept him alive. Brown felt something tighten in his chest. What's your brother's name? Captain James Mitchell, pilot. He made it home because of you. Tell him. Brown paused. Tell him it was an honor. The clerk finished the paperwork quickly, efficiently, handed Brown his discharge papers. Thank you for your service, Lieutenant. Truly. Outside, Brown and Brantley walked toward the main gate, toward freedom, toward whatever came next. You think it'll be different? Brantley asked. Now that we're home. No, Brown said honestly. But we're different, and maybe that's what matters. December 2007, Washington, D.C., United States Capitol. Roscoe Brown sat in his wheelchair, 86 years old, his body failing, but his mind sharp. Around him, 300 surviving Tuskegee Airmen gathered in the Capitol Rotunda, waiting. 62 years since March 24, 1945. 62 years since he'd killed a jet over Berlin. 62 years of teaching, fighting for civil rights, telling the story to anyone who'd listen. And finally, someone had listened. President George W. Bush stepped to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, we gather today to honor the Tuskegee Airmen with the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian honor Congress can bestow. The applause was thunderous. Brown closed his eyes, felt tears on his cheeks. The president continued. These men served with distinction during World War II. They flew over 15,000 sorties, destroyed over 250 enemy aircraft, never lost a bomber under their escort to enemy fighters, a record unmatched by any other fighter group. Brown opened his eyes, looked around at the faces. Old men, now some in wheelchairs, some with oxygen tanks, all wearing their red-tailed patches with pride. Earl Lane sat 2 rows away. They'd stayed in touch over the decades. Lane had become a surgeon, saved countless lives, never forgot what they'd proven in the sky over Berlin. Charles Brantley hadn't made it. Died in 1983, still fighting for recognition, still angry at the world's slowness to change. But he'd lived long enough to see the Air Force integrate, to see black pilots flying modern jets, to know that what they'd started had continued. The president called Brown's name. Lieutenant Colonel Roscoe Brown. 5 confirmed kills, including the first Me-262 jet shot down by an Allied pilot. Brown wheeled himself forward. The president placed the medal around his neck. The weight was insignificant, just gold and ribbon. But what it represented was everything. Proof. Acknowledgement. History finally catching up to truth. After the ceremony, reporters surrounded him. Questions came in rapid-fire succession. Colonel Brown, what was it like that day over Berlin? Terrifying. Exhilarating. Impossible. But we did it anyway. Did you know you were making history? No. We were just trying to survive, to do our jobs, to prove we belonged. What do you want people to remember about the Tuskegee Airmen? Brown paused. Thought about all the young men who hadn't made it home, about the missions flown, the barriers broken, the decades of fighting for recognition. I want people to remember that we were good. Not good for colored pilots, just good, among the best pilots in the war, and that we proved excellence has no color, that courage, skill, and discipline matter more than the skin you're born in. Do you feel like you've finally received the recognition you deserved? Yes and no. Brown smiled. We deserved it in 1945, but I'm grateful we lived long enough to see it. Too many didn't. A young reporter, couldn't be more than 25, stepped forward. Colonel, what would you say to young people today who face discrimination, who are told they can't achieve their dreams? Brown looked at him. Saw himself at 25 standing in Tuskegee being told he'd never fly, never succeed, never matter. I'd say this: they will try to stop you. They will put obstacles in your path. They will tell you it's impossible. And sometimes you'll believe them. You'll doubt yourself, question whether you have what it takes. He paused. But here's the secret they don't want you to know: impossible is just a challenge waiting for someone brave enough to attempt it. We killed jets and propeller planes because we refused to accept that it couldn't be done. You can do the same with whatever obstacles you face. Even if nobody believes in you. Especially then, because belief starts with you. You prove it to yourself first. The world catches up later, sometimes decades later, but it catches up. The interview ended. Brown wheeled himself to a quiet corner, exhausted but content. Lane found him there. You okay, Roz? Yeah, just thinking. About March 24th, always March 24th. Lane nodded. Me too, every day for 62 years. I wake up and remember that moment, the jet in my gun sight, the wing buckling, thinking I was going to die and deciding it was worth it anyway. Was it worth it? Lane looked around the Capitol Rotunda at the surviving airmen, at their families, at the younger generation listening to their stories with rapt attention. Yeah, it was worth it. Because now they know. Now everyone knows. The Tuskegee Airmen weren't just a footnote. We were pioneers. We changed aviation, changed the military, changed America. You think it'll last, the memory? As long as we tell the story. As long as people like you keep teaching it. As long as someone remembers our names and what we stood for. Brown nodded slowly. Then I'll keep telling it, for as long as I can. He died 4 years later in 2016 at age 94. Earl Lane followed in 2016 as well. Charles Brantley had been gone for decades, but their story remained. In textbooks now, in documentaries, in the memories of everyone who heard about 3 propeller planes defeating 3 jets on March 24, 1945. 3 black pilots proving that courage and skill could overcome any obstacle, even the impossible mathematics of aerial combat. They'd fought 2 wars, one in the sky, one on the ground. Won the first decisively. The second is still being fought, will always be fought, because the battle for equality never truly ends. But they'd proven something fundamental, that excellence transcends race, that determination can overcome prejudice, that 3 men with enough courage can change the world. Their red-tailed Mustangs are in museums now, polished, pristine, nothing like the battle-scarred aircraft they'd flown into history. But on quiet days, when the museums are empty and the light hits just right, you can almost see them. 3 pilots climbing into their cockpits, 3 men preparing to do the impossible one more time. They built their legacy on skill and courage and unbreakable will, and it endures. Not because anyone gave it to them, but because they earned it, one mission at a time, one victory at a time, one impossible moment at a time. Remember their names: Roscoe Brown, Charles Brantley, Earl Lane. Remember what they proved on March 24, 1945, that the measure of a pilot isn't the machine they fly, but the heart that guides it. Remember that they were told it was impossible, and they did it anyway. And if you believe their story deserves to be told, to be remembered, to inspire the next generation facing their own impossible challenges, share it. Write their names in the comments below. Tell someone who needs to hear it. Keep the memory alive, because that's how we honor them. Not with medals or monuments, though those matter, but by remembering, by learning, by carrying forward the lesson they taught at 30,000 feet over Berlin. That impossible is just another word for not yet accomplished. That courage doesn't calculate odds, and that 3 determined souls can defeat the future itself if they refuse to believe in surrender. They flew into history on wings of crimson and pride, and history finally rightfully remembers.